Hi, I'm Lisa Hammer. This is my midterm oral assignment for Psychology 516, Organizational Psychology through Liberty University. I'm going to answer a series of 5 questions related to the studies that we've done thus far. The first question is, how have recent historical events affected the course of research in organizational psychology? Give an example of an event and the resulting outcome. There have been several historical events over the past 30 to 40 years that have impacted the research of organizational psychology. With the fall of the Soviet Union and the communist states, workers there that formerly had worked in state-owned businesses now had to be managed and motivated differently now that they worked in a free economy. That offered opportunity for organizational psychologists to research what motivated them, how to manage those people. Demographics have changed the workforce across the globe with this globalization and free economy. And now you have more diverse and ethnic work groups everywhere. In our own agency, where I work, we have a lot of diversity initiatives that attempt to socialize ethnic groups into the company and allow us to learn from each other based on our ethnicity and the diverse characteristics that we have. And so this has opened up a whole new world for organizational psychologists as well. But I think the most interesting one has to do with technology. With the increase of technology and technological advancements, we now have the world at our fingertips. We can use our cell phone to access email. We can use our cell phone to make phone calls, obviously, and to access the internet. And we can do these things 24/7. We have constant access to our work in that way. This provides businesses an opportunity to use telework, to use more technology in order to allow people to have flexible work schedules. And this is opens up some opportunities for organizational psychologists to see what the impact of that is. One impact could be the blurred lines between home and work. Now that we have access to our work environment 24/7 through these laptops or through our cell phone, then how does that work with a work-family conflict? And so that's an area that organizational psychology has looked at based on technology. Obviously, as one instance. I think technology in the future will also impact their future research as more employees are performing task-based or project-based work for companies, maybe in a contractor mode versus a full-time employee mode. So no longer sitting in that cubicle in that particular corporate office, but at a remote location and working using the technology that's provided to be able to communicate. And obviously, this communication has changed from just being able to talk, like I'm talking right now, to face to face, to be able to communicate via email, which is a completely different animal. So, organizational psychologists have a lot of opportunity to research in these areas to see what technology impacts have made in the work-family conflict, what they've made for businesses, and what they'll make for the future of work. Question number 2. Describe the socialization process for graduate students in your program. Is the program successful in socializing newcomers and creating job embeddedness? Socialization is a process by which new employees or members of a group learn the expectations and the norms of the organization. So this can occur from both the organizational perspective and from the individual perspective. From the organizational perspective, I think Liberty's done a great job in socializing newcomers to the program. A lot of people who are online and conducting these graduate programs or any of the undergraduate programs as well are working full-time jobs, and they have other things going on in their life, obviously. And sometimes it could be that they've waited a while, like me, to go back to school to get that master's or even to get that undergraduate program. And so Liberty so far has done such a great job of socializing us into the programs that we are taking. For the classes I've attended online, every class has had an opportunity to share. The very first thing is to introduce yourself, who you are, where you work, what your interests are, some personal information about you. And that allows you to get commonalities with people in the class and also maybe to recognize a few people you've taken some other classes with. The opportunity with online classes is to meet people in person is going to be rare because we're spread out across the country. But just being able to communicate via that discussion board forum, to be able to share that is a good thing. Also, I think the professors have done a great job at communicating with us as far as what the expectations are, sending encouraging words, clarifying the assignments and things like that. So I think that constant contact, especially in the online environment, has been really good at making sure that we're embedded and that we have that interactive participation. The discussion board forum that asks you about collaboration, I've used that a couple of times to ask clarifying questions of classmates, and it's a great tool to have there so that you can reach out to people. And I really like the discussion board forums. Sometimes they're a little difficult to get through, if you're thinking about your personal thing or biblical integration. But it's been very interesting to learn about other people's perspectives and be able to reply back to those and even gain some knowledge that you didn't have before from those people. And so even in this type of communication that we're doing through this program and through these classes, I think that the socialization of this, the way it's been handled has been great as far as embedding us in the program and making everyone feel comfortable to ask the questions and to be encouraged to do so. Question number 3. How can an organization reduce or prevent work-family conflict? Balancing work and non-work is really a difficult task. Work demands take time away from the family, and family needs or concerns or crises can impact job performance. With the ability to work from home and still be connected to work through technology, work often seems like it's 24/7. While the ability to work anytime, anywhere can create a conflict, I believe it can also alleviate some of the work-family conflicts that exist. For example, in my personal experience, our office has instituted a telework policy about a decade ago. We're able to work anytime, anywhere, as long as we're getting our 40 hours and as long as we're able to not have negative consequences on our production. So this really has helped a lot with our office, with keeping employees and with encouraging employees to come to us and be employed because it's a benefit. We can take lunch and go work out. We can start our work a little bit late in the day if we need to take a kid to school. We can even take our computer to the hospital if there's an ill family member and work there. And that saves our annual leave, saves some sick leave, and really helps cut down on that conflict that we may have. Another option is flexible work schedules. This could be companies deciding to allow a work schedule from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. in order for people to pick up their children, or a later one in order to drop off their child and then come to work and work later in the day. When I was growing up, my grandparents took care of me while my mom was a teacher. My dad worked, and with a two-parent income, it's difficult to get a kid to school. So my grandparents took me to school until I was able to drive and do that on my own. And my parents were able to do that for my daughter. Unfortunately, that's not an option for a lot of people. And with daycare so expensive, a lot of times the job that you have, the income from it just doesn't cover the cost. So employers that are able to offer on-site daycare really provide a really good benefit for their employees in terms of being able to be close to their child if the child is sick, not have to take time away, and also to be able to save that money that the expensive daycare would cost, and also to save time and energy of picking up and dropping off. And then another option would be exercise facilities. A lot of companies have a wellness program, and they allow their employees to be able to use their gym during the day, make up the time later on, and that also, not only improves their health, but it also is a perk, a benefit for the employer to have them on the job more because they don't have to leave early to go work out. They're not feeling stressed because they're working off that energy. So all those things can help alleviate that work-family conflict. Question number 4. Imagine you have been asked to develop a performance assessment program for employee development. What techniques could you use to adequately evaluate employee performance as comprehensively as possible? Think of Murphy's List. Job performance is behavioral, so it's kind of difficult to measure that directly. So in order to do that, you really need to know all aspects of the job that someone's performing. Murphy describes in the textbook 8 ways to assess job performance. I actually looked for the information related to Murphy's List, and I found the original report called Dimensions of Job Performance. This was conducted by Dr. Kevin Murphy and a co-author, I'm going to pronounce this name wrong, Leonard Croker, from the Navy Personnel Research and Development Center. So this report they did was, and I quote, define general dimensions that describe the global construct of human performance at work and to identify measures of such dimensions. So the paper characterizes Murphy's List in those 8 things that we studied in the text, but it goes a little bit broader and combines those into 4 different categories. I want to equate this kind of to my job as far as how I would do it if I were assessing an auditor and creating an audit assessment program. So the first category has to do with job, knowledge, and skills testing. This is the paper pencil test. So I might give someone a test as far as knowing what the auditing standards are, being able to identify what a true finding is with the specific criteria or the condition, the cause, the effect, the recommendation. The next part of that is the job skills test, and this would be skill competencies. So for example, can you do pivot tables in Excel? Are you good at data analysis? Can you use a computer well? The next set is hands-on testing, and Murphy talks about this as far as on-site and off-site. And so the on-site testing would be how an employee is observed performing the task in a normal work setting. So for my auditor evaluation program, I might observe the auditor interviewing an employee outside of our office to see if they ask the right types of questions, to see if they ask good follow-up questions, to see if they're getting all the information they need. Then off-site testing might be where I observe the employee present materials to our internal management. So for example, if we have an audit that has a very controversial finding that we're going to have to talk to the agency management about, then how does the auditor present that to our office management and explain what the issues are? And then how do they present that to the actual auditee, the one who really has to deal with that controversial finding? So observing them in that very normal setting, normative setting in the office versus in that external setting would be one way to do that off-site hands testing. And then next is simulations. There's the high fidelity simulations, and this would be similar to what I just described with observing externally with an auditor or with the auditee. So this would be where I might have role play, where the auditor would explain to me what the findings are and how controversial or what things might occur, and then I would disagree with them or ask them questions and make sure that they fully comprehended and were able to simulate. I think that in the paper that Murphy had, it was like an airplane simulator. So that would be kind of how I would think about it as far as evaluating someone in that way, would be, could they role play with me and then go out and do the same thing with the auditee? And then the other one would be symbolic simulation. Murphy describes this as pictures or videos that kind of describe the task. Now, in the audit world, we don't have pictures and videos, unfortunately, but we do presentations. So does the auditor have everything they need in there? Do they describe exactly what they looked at, the objective of it, the scope, the methodology that they used? And then finally, there's the ratings. The ratings would be evaluations from supervisors, peers, others on how well the task was conducted. So it would be basically for me around the audit. How well was the audit conducted? And I might ask team members, if it was the team lead doing this, how well did they do the audit? How well did they lead you? How well did they give you tasks and give you feedback on those tasks? And then finally, global ratings would be the last piece of this. That's more related to the task and the competencies. looking at the broader picture, looking at the overall um, results of it after it goes through, after the task goes through review. Did the auditor actually understand what they were doing? Did they meet the objective that they were supposed to do with the task? Do they understand how to analyze the data? Did they do it correctly? And did they treat the auditee with respect? Did they were they able to point out issues with them? So using Murphy's List, I think there's several options I would have there to be able to to evaluate an auditor and provide that assessment. The last question: what are some possible common organizational constraints? How could they lead to counterproductive behaviors? Organizational constraints can be related to money. They could be budgetary limitations, preventing organizations from having adequate resources. This could be resources to fix things, resources for tools and equipment, materials and supplies, or even staffing. Limitations in any of these areas could lead to counterproductive behaviors. Counterproductive behaviors are any kind of behavior that would harm an individual or an organization. So obviously, on the one hand, you do have some people that have personality traits that they're just prone to being or producing counterproductive behaviors. These personality traits are related to trait anger, where you're just generally angry when you're frustrated. It could be narcissistic, low in conscientiousness, and lack of self-control. But there are also other situational factors that can cause people to be counterproductive. There's several types of these, such as production deviance or sabotage. And this could be when you waste time. So if you're in an organization that you feel like is low on staff and no one will listen to you, and you feel like you're overworked, then maybe you waste time, or maybe you take longer to do a project, or maybe you mess up a project just a little bit, just enough to make it take longer. And therefore, you might want to prove your point to management that you need more staff. Or in some cases, you may prove your point to management that it took longer than they thought, and they may have to pay you extra overtime for that. This could be because of opportunity. You just have, nobody's watching and you're able to do that. Or just because you're lazy and don't want the extra work. Employee theft is another behavior that's counterproductive. This is basically just taking items that don't belong to you from the organization. And this could be pens and pencils. You pick up a pencil at work and you take it home and forget about it then. But in some instances, it could be something more. It could be, for example, in my life, in a plant situation, it could be someone accidentally stuck a screwdriver in their lunchbox and didn't think about it. So that would be their pen or pencil. But in some cases, someone might take that toolbox home because they feel like they're entitled to it. Their plant is shutting down, or because of budgetary constraints, or the company isn't fixing things the way they should, so they may try to sabotage it as well. So there's lots of options there for that type of behavior, and that can lead to that. And it's very destructive to individuals, and it's very destructive to organizations.